The sky does not darken, it collapses. A wall of storm clouds stretches beyond the horizon, devouring the light, consuming the color, turning the day into something unrecognizable. The thunder does not crack, it rolls, deep and unending, like the voice of something ancient awakening beneath the surface. The winds scream across the open expanse, carving invisible paths through the air as the ocean below begins to rise in response. Waves, not as we know them, but towering, shifting mountains of water. They rise with a terrifying grace, their crests torn by violent gusts, their bodies crashing with a force that shakes the very skin of the sea. Each impact sends shockwaves through the endless blue, a chain reaction of chaos that stretches for miles. From above, the view is almost unreal. A satellite drifts silently in orbit, capturing the immensity of it all. A rotating mass dominates the Pacific, a storm system so vast it could swallow entire nations. Its spiraling arms stretch for thousands of kilometers, churning without rest, as if the ocean itself were breathing, inhaling power, exhaling destruction. There are no boundaries here. No refuge, no escape. Only movement, only force, only the relentless rhythm of a world that never rests. The surface fractures under the weight of the storm. Waves collapse into one another, exploding into white foam before being consumed again by the dark, churning mass below. The rain falls in sheets so dense they blur the line between sky and sea, as if both had become a single, continuous and violent entity. And then, silence. Not the silence of peace, but something deeper, heavier. Beneath the chaos, just meters below the surface, the fury begins to fade. The roaring thunder above softens into a distant, muffled rumble. The light struggles to penetrate the shifting ceiling of water, breaking into weak, trembling beams that dissolve into darkness. Deeper still, and the last traces of the storm disappear. Now there is only shadow. A vast and endless void stretches in all directions, no movement, no sound, no signs of life. Only an overwhelming presence, as if the ocean itself were watching, waiting, existing on a scale too immense to comprehend. The pressure increases with every meter. The cold seeps into everything. Here, the rules of the surface no longer apply. This is a place untouched by sunlight, a realm where time slows, where darkness is absolute, and where survival is not yet a story, but a possibility waiting to be written. The Pacific Ocean, the largest body of water on Earth, larger than all the continents combined. A world so vast, so deep, so relentless, that most of it remains unexplored, unknown, unseen. It is not a place designed for life. It is a place that challenges it. Every drop, every current, every shifting tide is part of something greater, a system in constant motion, shaping climates, driving storms, and holding within it the power to create and destroy. This is not water, this is a force, a living, pulsing entity that beats with energy, that moves with intention, that dominates everything in its path without hesitation or mercy. Above, the storm continues its relentless march, leaving its mark on the surface. But down here, in the depths, there is only stillness, an unsettling calm that hides the true nature of what this ocean really is. Because this silence is not empty. It is waiting. Waiting for movement, waiting for life, waiting for the moment when the unseen begins to reveal itself, when darkness gives way to something far more complex, far more brutal, and far more extraordinary than anything above the surface could suggest. The Pacific does not welcome, it does not forgive, it does not care. It simply exists, vast and indifferent, a world unto itself. And yet, against all odds, life will emerge. But not yet. For now, there is only the storm, the darkness, and the overwhelming power of an ocean that rules this planet in silence. Welcome to the wild Pacific. The storm still roars above, but beneath the surface, something begins to change. Violence softens into movement. Chaos becomes rhythm. The deafening roar fades into a silent and endless drift, a world suspended between light and darkness where the first signs of life begin to reveal themselves. A single ray of sunlight pierces the water. It trembles as it descends, fragmenting, scattering into soft golden threads that dance with the movement of the sea. And within that light, something stirs. At first, it is almost invisible. Tiny particles float in the water, countless, weightless, alive, plankton, the smallest of the ocean's drifters. They move not with purpose, but with the currents, carried across vast distances like dust in the wind. And yet, within their fragile forms, lies the foundation of an entire world. They do not hunt, they do not flee, and yet, everything depends on them. Around them, the water begins to fill with movement. Small fish emerge from the blue, flashes of silver, bodies turning in perfect synchrony, reflecting the light like shards of glass. They move as one, a living cloud, shifting shape with every subtle change in the current. There is no leader, no signal, and yet they are never out of sync. A sudden ripple moves through the school. It is not panic, not yet, but it is awareness, because in this ocean, nothing moves without reason. Nearby, something pulses. A translucent form comes into view, almost unreal in its stillness, a jellyfish. Its bell contracts slowly, rhythmically, propelling it forward with silent grace. Delicate filaments trail behind it like strands of silk, swaying gently. Almost hypnotic, it appears harmless, weightless, but even here, beauty has consequences. Invisible to the naked eye, those filaments hold the power to paralyze, a silent weapon in a world where survival depends on what cannot be seen. The deeper the light reaches, the more life begins to gather. Small fish move among the drifting plankton, feeding constantly, never stopping. Their movements are quick, erratic, in contrast to the slow, dreamlike rhythm of the water around them. Every second matters. Every bite is an opportunity to grow, or a moment lost. Because they are not alone. Something moves just beyond the visible, a shadow that does not belong to the light. It lingers at the edge of perception, moving with intention, not with the current. There is no sudden strike, no dramatic chase, only presence, watching, calculating. The small fish tighten their formation. The water itself seems to hold its breath, but the shadow never fully reveals itself, not yet. Instead, it circles, distant, patient, a reminder that in this world, danger is rarely seen before it is felt. Life here is not random, it is layered, connected. Every drifting organism, every flicker of movement, every silent pulse is part of something much greater, an invisible chain that links the smallest to the strongest. Plankton feeds the fish. Fish feeds something else, and that feeds something even greater. It is a system without mercy, but not without balance. Because in the Pacific, survival is not given, it is taken. It is earned in every second of existence, in every movement, in every choice between risk and retreat. Here, nothing is wasted, nothing is guaranteed, and nothing is safe. The light continues to fade as the water deepens, swallowing colors, softening shapes, turning clarity into mystery once again. The small fish scatter, the jellyfish is lost in the darkness, and the plankton disappears into the infinite blue. But the presence remains, invisible, uncertain, waiting, because this is only the beginning, a glimpse of a world where life does not simply exist. It endures, it adapts, it survives, or it disappears. Light does not simply fade in the Pacific, it transforms. What begins as a single shifting expanse of blue is, in reality, a divided world, not by borders, but by depth, temperature, pressure, and light. A vast and stratified realm where each level tells a different story, and where survival demands something entirely unique. Near the surface, where sunlight still holds its power, life gathers in bursts of color and movement. Coral reefs rise from the ocean floor like submerged cities, intricate, alive, and infinitely complex. From above, they appear calm, almost delicate, but up close, they are anything but still. Every centimeter is occupied. Every crevice hides movement. Small fish weave through branching corals, their scales glowing in vivid blues, yellows, and reds. Parrotfish scrape the reef with beak-like mouths, carving the very structure that protects them. Clouds of smaller organisms drift just above the surface, flickering in and out of view like living confetti. It feels like abundance, like safety. But even here, danger is constant. A sudden shift in the water, a flash of movement, and the illusion breaks. A predator glides through the reef, silent, precise, and in an instant, the balance is broken. The reef is not a sanctuary. It is a battlefield disguised as paradise. Beyond the reefs, the world changes. Color disappears, replaced by an endless, uninterrupted blue. This is the open ocean, vast, empty, and relentless. There are no shelters here, no walls of coral to hide behind, no fixed structure at all. Only distance, only exposure. Life in this expanse must move, or it disappears. Schools of fish travel in synchronized formations, their unity their only defense. Larger bodies patrol the void, fast, streamlined, built for endurance. Here, survival is not about hiding. It is about speed, about awareness, about never stopping. Because in the open ocean, being seen is often the last mistake you make. And then the descent begins. And then the descent begins. The seafloor plunges into something far more extreme. Immense trenches open in the Earth's crust, sinking deeper than mountains rise above it. These are the deepest parts of the Pacific, places where sunlight never reaches, where pressure crushes, and where the cold is absolute. This is the deep ocean, a realm of darkness so complete that vision itself becomes useless. Here, life has taken on forms that seem almost unreal, bodies shaped by pressure, senses adapted to vibrations, and faint flashes of light. Movement is slower, energy is scarce. Everything here survives with less. But even in this void, life persists, strange, alien, resilient. And at the farthest edges of the Pacific, another extreme emerges. The water cools, the currents shift, ice begins to form at the surface, spreading into vast frozen landscapes. These are the polar boundaries, regions where survival is challenged not by depth, but by cold. Here, the ocean breathes differently. The surface hardens, breaks, reforms. Beneath the ice, life clings to narrow windows of opportunity, brief seasons of light, short bursts of abundance. The creatures here are built for endurance, for resilience, for surviving conditions that would silence most of the ocean. From tropical reefs teeming with life, to empty blue deserts, to crushing depths, to frozen frontiers. The Pacific is not a single world, it is many, each layer separate, yet connected, each environment shaped by forces that never rest. And within each, life must adapt, evolve, and struggle to exist under rules that are constantly changing. Because here, each layer tells a different story, and each demands a different kind of survivor. Sunlight floods the shallow waters of the Pacific, transforming the ocean into a living kaleidoscope. Here, in the warm embrace of the tropics, Coral reefs rise like underwater kingdoms, vast, intricate, and bursting with color. Every surface glows with life. Branching corals extend like frozen trees, their tips painted in neon hues. Soft corals sway gently with the current, as if breathing with the rhythm of the sea itself. At first glance, it feels peaceful, almost untouched, a paradise. Small fish glide through the maze of coral structures, their movements light and effortless. A pair of clownfish hover near their anemone home, slipping in and out of its stinging tentacles with practiced ease. What would be deadly to others is their sanctuary, a perfect alliance in a world where safety is never guaranteed. Nearby, a parrotfish glides past, its scales shimmering in shades of turquoise and pink. With a sudden bite, it scrapes the coral, breaking off small fragments with a crunch that echoes faintly in the water. It feeds constantly, shaping the very reef it depends on, turning coral into sand grain by grain. Everywhere you look, there is movement. Tiny shrimp cleaning larger fish. Schools weaving through narrow passages. Invisible creatures moving just beneath the surface of the reef itself. It is a world of abundance, but not of peace, because beneath the color, beneath the beauty, lies tension. A sudden flash, and the reef reacts. The smallest fish tighten their formations. Movements become sharper, more deliberate. The rhythm changes, almost imperceptibly, but enough to send a silent signal through the water. Something has entered their world. At first, it is nothing more than a shadow. Long, smooth, unhurried. It does not rush, it does not chase, it simply moves. A reef shark glides into view, its body cutting through the water with effortless precision. Its presence is calm, almost serene, but unmistakable. Every movement is controlled, every turn calculated. It does not need to announce itself. Everything already knows. The reef does not fall silent, but it changes. The fish scatter just slightly, maintaining distance without fleeing. They have seen this before. Here, survival is not about panic, it is about awareness. About reading the subtle changes in movement, the smallest signals of danger. The shark continues on its path, gliding through the maze of coral like a ghost. It is not desperate, it is not reckless, it waits, because in a place so crowded, opportunity is inevitable. A single mistake, a fish that strays too far from cover, a moment of distraction is all it takes. And when that moment arrives, the stillness breaks. A sudden burst of speed. A flash of movement, and then nothing. The water calms, the reef exhales, and life continues as if nothing had happened. This is the truth of the coral reef. A world that dazzles the eye while hiding a constant and silent struggle beneath its surface. Every color, every movement, every interaction is part of a delicate balance, one where life flourishes not because it is safe, but because it has learned to survive in the presence of danger. Here, beauty is not a sign of peace, it is a disguise, an illusion carefully woven by nature itself, concealing a world where every creature, no matter how small or vibrant, lives on the edge between existence and disappearance. The reef does not belong only to those who swim. It belongs to those who wait. Beneath the vibrant chaos of color and movement, hidden within cracks, shadows, and shifting textures, lives a different kind of predator. One that does not chase, does not rush, does not reveal itself. It disappears. A fragment of coral shifts, or at least that is what it seems. What seemed like stone begins to breathe. What seemed lifeless begins to change shape. One arm slowly uncoils, almost lazily, blending perfectly with the patterns around it. Then another, and another. An octopus, but not as a creature separate from the reef, but as the reef itself. Its skin ripples with color, transforming in real time, from mottled brown to pale sand, from the rough texture of coral to smooth stone. It does not move through its environment. It becomes it. A small fish approaches, unaware. The octopus does not react. It waits, every limb anchored in stillness, every detail perfectly aligned with its surroundings. The seconds stretch, the distance closes. And then, the movement explodes. Arms shoot outward in a blur of precision, wrapping, pulling, capturing. The water erupts for a fraction of a second, and then calms just as quickly. The octopus disappears again. Only a faint disturbance remains, and even that fades. Elsewhere, deeper within the shadowy corridors of the reef, another hunter prepares. A narrow crevice cuts through the coral wall, dark and unwelcoming. Inside, something moves. Two eyes emerge first, unblinking, fixed, ancient. A moray eel. Its body coils within the rock, muscles tense, mouth opening and closing in a slow rhythmic motion. It does not breathe like others. It waits, tasting the water, sensing movement through vibrations too subtle to be seen. A small fish passes by the entrance, too close. The attack is instantaneous. A flash of movement, a snap of jaws filled with needle-like teeth, and the silence is broken only for a heartbeat. The eel retreats just as quickly, dragging its prey back into the darkness. No chase, no warning, only precision. And then, there are those who do not even need to move. Resting on the sandy bottom, among fragments of coral and scattered debris, lies what appears to be nothing more than a part of the reef itself. Rough, irregular, completely motionless. A stonefish. It does not stalk. It does not hunt. It simply exists, perfectly disguised, indistinguishable from the ocean floor. Its body mimics the rock with such perfection that even the most careful observer could overlook it. Small creatures pass by without hesitation. There is no visible threat, no signal, no hint of danger, until contact. A sudden movement, almost too fast to follow, and the stonefish opens its mouth, creating a powerful vacuum that sucks in its prey in an instant. No struggle, no escape. And then, stillness returns. But the danger does not end there. Because the stonefish carries something more, venom, hidden in spines along its back, capable of delivering a defense as lethal as its ambush. It is not just a hunter. It is a warning, disguised as nothing. Throughout the reef, this silent war continues. No dramatic chases, no long hunts in open water. Only patience, only time, only the art of becoming invisible until the exact moment it matters. Here, survival is not always about speed or strength. Sometimes it is about disappearing completely, and in a world where everything is watching, the most dangerous predator is the one you never see. Beyond the reefs, the color fades. The intricate maze of coral gives way to something far more unsettling, an endless expanse of blue stretching in every direction. No walls, no shelter, no limits, only open water, vast and indifferent, swallowing everything in its path. This is the open ocean. At first glance, it feels empty, almost lifeless. But that illusion is its greatest deception. Because here, survival does not depend on hiding. It depends on movement. A faint glimmer appears in the distance, subtle, almost like a trick of the light. But it grows, expanding, multiplying, until the water itself seems to ripple with life. A school of fish emerges, thousands moving as one, their silver bodies catching the sunlight in synchronized flashes. They do not swim, they flow. Every turn is instantaneous, every change perfectly synchronized, as if guided by a single mind. There is no leader, no command, only instinct refined across generations. Together they form something greater than themselves. A living shield in a place where individuality means vulnerability. Among them, the mackerel cut through the water with precision. Streamlined, powerful, built for constant movement. Their bodies are designed for endurance, to cover great distances without slowing down, without stopping. They feed as they move, react as they swim, live in a state of perpetual awareness. Because here, stopping is not an option. The open ocean offers no second chances. And then, deeper within the shifting mass, something stronger moves. Tuna, larger, faster, relentless. Their bodies are built like machines, muscle arranged with purpose, fins refined for speed, hearts beating with an intensity few creatures can match. They are not carried by the current. They cut through it, dominating the space around them. A sudden change runs through the school. It is not panic, it is tension. The formation tightens, compressing into a dense and moving wall of silver. Individuals disappear into the collective, each fish aligning perfectly with the next. It is not random. It is defense. Because in a place without shelter, the only protection is confusion. The school turns sharply, and then again, twisting and folding over itself, creating waves of movement that distort perception. To an external observer, it becomes impossible to track a single target. The mass becomes fluid, unpredictable, alive in a way that unsettles even the most focused gaze. And yet, the ocean around them remains vast, exposed, watching. There is no reef to retreat to, no shadow to disappear into, only distance and whatever may be moving within it. A darker shape flickers far below, vanishing as quickly as it appears. The fish react instantly, their movements tightening further, their rhythm accelerating. They do not wait to confirm the threat. Here, hesitation is risk. Here, survival is speed. The school surges forward, a living current slicing through the void, driven by a single purpose: to keep moving, to stay together, to outrun whatever may be following them. Because in the open ocean, there is nowhere to hide. Only the endless blue, only the constant need to move, only the understanding that every moment of stillness is an opportunity for something else. And in this vast and silent desert of water, endurance is not an advantage. It is everything. In the open ocean, stillness is a signal, and movement is a risk. The vast blue stretches endlessly in every direction, but within it, a silent tension grows. The schooling fish move in tight formation, their bodies flashing in synchronized waves, a living illusion designed to confuse, to overwhelm, to survive. But here there are hunters that cannot be deceived. From the depths something rises. At first, it is only a shadow, long, narrow, accelerating with terrifying precision. Then, in a sudden burst of speed, it breaks into the light. A marlin. Its body is built like a weapon, streamlined, powerful, its spear-shaped bill slicing through the water ahead of it. Every movement is controlled, every muscle aligned for a single purpose: the chase. It does not hesitate, it does not circle. It attacks. The school reacts instantly, splitting into a violent explosion of movement. What was once unity becomes chaos, thousands of fish scattering in all directions, each trying to disappear into the vastness. But the marlin is already among them. It cuts through the swarm with incredible speed, its bill striking, stunning prey in rapid succession. There is no wasted motion, no loss of focus. It isolates weakness within the confusion, turning the school's greatest defense into its greatest vulnerability. And beneath it all, something larger moves, steady, relentless. A shark. It does not match the speed of the marlin or the sailfish. It does not need to. Its power lies elsewhere, in endurance, in inevitability. And, while the faster predators create chaos, the shark follows with purpose, reading the movement, sensing the panic, conserving energy for the moment that matters most. A single fish breaks away, only for an instant. That is all it takes. The shark surges forward with sudden force, its body coiling with power as it closes the distance. There is no escape now, no formation to hide within, no confusion to rely on. The ocean itself seems to tighten. A flash, an attack, and it is over. The chase continues, but the outcome has already been decided for some. Above, below, and everywhere, the pursuit unfolds in relentless cycles, speed against speed, instinct against instinct, a constant test of endurance, precision, and synchronization. Because in the open ocean, survival is not about being the strongest, nor the fastest. It is about being faster for long enough to escape, or long enough to catch. And then, the ocean changes again. The chaos of the hunt fades into something slower, deeper, heavier. The water seems to expand, as if making room for something far greater than speed, far greater than the frantic struggle between predator and prey. The tension does not disappear, but it transforms. Because here, power is no longer measured in bursts of movement. It is measured in scale. A shadow emerges from the blue, not sharp or sudden, but vast and deliberate. At first, it is impossible to comprehend its size. There is no reference, no boundary to define it. Only as it continues and continues does the truth begin to settle. This is not just another creature. This is a giant. The blue whale. Its body moves with an impossible calm, a living continent drifting through the water. Every movement is slow, controlled, as if the ocean itself bends around it. Its tail moves once, and the force of it propels the massive body forward with effortless grace. There is no urgency here, there is no fear, and yet this giant is driven by something as relentless as any predator. Hunger. Its mouth opens, vast, cavernous, and surges forward through dense clouds of plankton. Thousands, millions of tiny organisms are drawn in at once, swallowed in a single engulfing motion. What is insignificant to most becomes everything to this giant. Because to sustain a body of this scale requires a life equivalent to an entire ocean. Every movement is calculated, every feeding pass is deliberate. The blue whale does not hunt in the traditional sense. It harvests. It transforms the smallest forms of life into the energy needed to sustain the largest creature the planet has ever known. And even so, even here, the story does not end. Another form rises through the water, smaller, but no less imposing. A humpback whale. Its movements are different, more expressive, more dynamic. It does not glide with the same silent enormity. It interacts, it turns, rolls, and dives with purpose, its long pectoral fins guiding it through the water like wings. Beneath it, a school of fish tightens. The humpback circles, once, twice. Then something extraordinary begins. A spiral of bubbles rises from the depths, forming a shimmering barrier that traps the fish within an ever-narrowing column. The water stirs gently, but with intention, a strategy unfolding in silence. And then it ascends, mouth completely open, propelling itself upward through the center of the trapped school, engulfing everything in its path. Water, fish, movement, everything consumed in a single breathtaking moment. The ocean calms once more. Two giants, two different approaches. One feeds on the smallest life in unimaginable quantities. The other hunts with precision, shaping the behavior of entire schools. But both are bound by the same truth. Even at this scale, survival is not guaranteed. The Pacific grants no exceptions. It does not forgive the great, nor does it favor the powerful. It demands, constantly, without end, and even its largest inhabitants must respond, because here, being a giant does not mean being free from hunger. It means carrying a hunger as vast as the ocean itself. The ocean never remains still. Currents shift, temperatures rise and fall. Invisible pathways stretch across thousands of kilometers, guiding life through a world that is constantly changing. And for those who inhabit the Pacific, remaining in one place is not an option. Because here, survival is not about territory, it is about movement. Far below the surface, a low, resonant call travels through the water, deep, powerful, traveling farther than any signal on land. It belongs to the humpback whale. It is not hunting. Not here. Instead, it moves with purpose, its massive body advancing steadily through the ocean as it begins one of the longest migrations on Earth. From cold, nutrient-rich feeding grounds to warm, protected breeding waters, it travels thousands of kilometers across the Pacific. It does not rush. It endures. Day after day, night after night, it swims, guided not by sight, but by instinct, an ancient rhythm written into its very being. Along the way, it faces exhaustion, shifting currents, and the vast uncertainty of the open ocean. And even so, it continues, because stopping is not part of the journey. Elsewhere, closer to the surface, a different migration unfolds. A surge of movement cuts through the blue, powerful, relentless. Tuna, unlike the slow, deliberate passage of whales, tuna move with urgency. Their bodies are built for speed, their muscles designed for continuous motion. They cross entire ocean basins in search of food, chasing shifting currents where prey gathers in fleeting abundance. They do not follow fixed routes. They follow opportunity, a change in temperature, a plankton bloom, a sudden concentration of smaller fish, and the tuna respond instantly, redirecting their path, adjusting their course in a constant pursuit of survival. There is no rest, only movement. Only the endless drive to keep going. And then, there are the travelers who begin their journey before even understanding it. On a quiet beach, far from the open ocean, the sand moves. Tiny flippers emerge, followed by small, determined bodies pushing toward the surface. One by one, they break free, hatchlings of the sea turtle. The world they enter is vast beyond comprehension. The ocean waits just ahead, its waves rolling gently toward the shore. But for these newborns, that distance is everything. They move instinctively, drawn toward the horizon, racing against time while predators lurk above and below. Most will not make it, but those that do begin a journey like no other. They disappear into the Pacific, carried by currents, drifting across entire oceans as they grow. Years will pass before they return, guided by forces not yet fully understood, to the very beaches where their journey began. A cycle written across generations, a path traced across the entire ocean, from giants that cross hemispheres, to fish that chase shifting currents, to fragile hatchlings that trust the unknown. The Pacific is alive with movement, infinite, relentless, necessary. Because in a world so vast, where conditions can change in an instant, where food appears and disappears without warning, survival does not belong to those who stay. It belongs to those who move, to those who endure the journey, to those who follow invisible paths across an ocean that never stops changing. Here, movement is not a choice, it is life itself. The ocean does not end at the surface. It plunges. Without warning, without gradual transition, the seafloor collapses into a vast, descending void. The blue fades rapidly, replaced by a deepening tone that consumes color, then form, then light itself. What was once a world of movement and visibility becomes something entirely different. The descent is sudden, relentless. Within meters, warmth begins to vanish. The water grows colder, heavier, pressing from all sides. Sunlight, once scattered and soft, weakens into thin, trembling rays, and then disappears completely. Now there is only darkness, not the darkness of night, but something deeper, permanent, absolute. This is the deep sea, a realm untouched by the sun. where time seems to stretch and slow, and where the rules of life at the surface no longer apply. Here, pressure increases with every meter, crushing with a force so immense it would collapse most forms of life instantly. Temperatures hover near freezing. Energy is scarce. Food is uncertain. It is a place where survival should not exist. And yet, it does. But not as we know it. The silence is overwhelming. There are no rushing currents, no bustling reefs. Only a stillness so complete it feels almost unnatural, as if the ocean itself were holding its breath. Particles drift slowly through the water, remnants of life from above, sinking endlessly toward a bottom that lies kilometers below. Every fragment matters here, every trace of energy, because in this world, nothing is wasted. The camera continues descending, deeper into the void, where even the concept of direction begins to fade. Up and down lose meaning. Distance becomes abstract. Darkness is no longer something seen, it is something felt, pressing against perception, surrounding everything. And within it, there is change. Subtle at first. A flash. It disappears as quickly as it appears. Then another. Small pulses of light, scattered in the infinite blackness, like distant stars in a skyless universe. They do not illuminate the darkness, they pierce it, briefly revealing glimpses of movement before vanishing once more. Life, but altered. Transformed. Here, evolution has taken a different path. Bodies are no longer shaped by speed or color, but by necessity. Eyes enlarge, or disappear entirely. Forms stretch, compress, adapt to pressures that would crush anything unprepared. Movement becomes slower, more deliberate, every action measured against the cost of energy. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is excessive. Because in a world where food may not arrive for days, or weeks, or more, efficiency is survival. The deep sea is not empty. It is patient. A realm where life does not flourish in abundance, but persists in isolation, each creature existing within its own fragile balance, connected only by the faintest threads of energy descending from the world above. And even so, even here, there are hunters, there are strategies, there is a system, but not one of speed or strength. It is something far more unknown, because this is where evolution becomes something entirely different. A place where survival is shaped not only by competition, but by the limits of existence itself. Where darkness is not an obstacle, but the environment. Where life does not conquer, it endures, without end, in silence, in a world without light. In the most remote depths of the Pacific, darkness is no longer empty. It watches. Small points of light flicker into existence, scattered through the void like a skyless constellation. They pulse softly, blinking in patterns that seem almost deliberate. Signals in a world where vision has no meaning without light. Creatures of all shapes and sizes emit their own glow. Some release brief flashes to startle predators. Others leave trails of light behind them, confusing anything that dares to follow. Some communicate, sending signals through the darkness in patterns not yet fully understood. This is bioluminescence, a living illumination in a world without sun. Bodies glow with electric blues, ghostly greens, and faint violets, turning the abyss into something almost cosmic, an ocean that reflects the stars, where life itself becomes the source of light. A small creature drifts, glowing softly. Then, suddenly, it disappears. Its light extinguishes in an instant. Something larger passes through, invisible except for the way surrounding lights scatter, reacting to a presence too large, too silent to fully reveal itself. Because even here, among the hunters, among the glowing signals and hidden traps, there is always something bigger, something deeper, something still waiting in the darkness. The abyss is not inert. It is alive in ways that defy expectation, shaped by pressure, by absence, by extremes that push evolution beyond imagination. Here, monsters are not defined by fear, but by adaptation, by the ability to survive where nothing should. And in this endless blackness, the light you see may be the last thing you follow. The abyss remains silent, but not empty. Invisible interactions continue in all directions, creatures sensing one another through the slightest disturbances, navigating a world built not on sight, but on awareness. A vibration in the distance, a flash of light, a presence, and somewhere in the darkness, another hunter waits. Invisible, inaudible, perfectly still, ready for the moment when the void itself brings the prey closer. At the surface, the Pacific becomes a boundary, not between places, but between worlds. Above, the sky stretches endlessly, ruled by wind and wing. Below, the ocean pulses with unseen movement, a hidden realm of currents, shadows, and silent predators. For most of the planet, these domains remain separate. But here, they collide. A gust of wind sweeps across the waves, sculpting ripples in the water below. Riding that invisible force, a solitary albatross glides effortlessly across the horizon. Its wings stretch wide, impossibly broad, barely moving as it harnesses the energy of the wind itself. It does not flap. It soars. For hours, even days, it can travel without rest, watching the surface below with unwavering focus. Its eyes are sharp, attuned to the smallest disturbances, a flash, a ripple, a break in the rhythm of the sea. Because somewhere below, something is moving. A sudden shimmer breaks the uniform blue. A school of fish gathers just beneath the surface, their bodies reflecting sunlight in chaotic bursts. They are not calm. Their formation tightens, compresses, a living signal of danger rising from below. And the sky responds. More birds appear. Seabirds circle overhead, their calls cutting through the wind as they fix their attention on the movement below. They dive suddenly, folding their wings and plunging into the water like arrows, breaking the surface with explosive force. For a brief moment, they become part of the ocean. Wings transform into torpedoes, bodies cutting through the upper layers as they pursue fleeing fish. Their movements are precise, practiced, a perfect fusion of air and water, evolved for this exact moment. Below them, chaos unfolds. The fish scatter, their tight formation breaking as threats now come from two directions. What was once safety in numbers becomes confusion, bodies colliding, turning, darting in desperate attempts to escape. One bird emerges again through the surface, a fish firmly gripped in its beak. But the hunt is far from over. More dives, more attacks. Above and below, the pressure increases, because the fish are not only escaping the sky, a darker force rises from below, unseen but relentless. The disturbance spreads through the water, pushing the school closer to the surface, compressing them into an ever smaller space between two worlds. Trapped, the birds now circle more tightly, their dives more frequent, more aggressive. They read the signals, understand the pattern. This is not just an opportunity. It is a convergence, a feeding event. The fish leap out of the water in desperation, breaking into the air for a fraction of a second, only to be snatched mid-flight by waiting beaks. Others dive deeper, only to meet what drove them upward in the first place. There is no escape, only direction, only reaction. The ocean churns with movement, the sky alive with wings, both realms merging into a single chaotic arena where survival is decided in seconds. And then, as suddenly as it began, it slows. The school disperses. The birds separate, rising once more into the open sky. The surface calms, returning to its gentle rhythm, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. But beneath that calm, the truth remains. The surface is not a boundary. It is a battlefield, a place where two worlds meet and where life is constantly tested between them. Because here, on this fragile line between air and ocean, survival depends on watching both skies. The ocean gathers and then erupts. What begins as scattered movement deep below the surface transforms into something vast, a living mass of silver, pulsing as one. Thousands, tens of thousands of fish converge, drawn by instinct and need. A bait ball. From a distance, it appears almost solid, a shifting sphere of light, each body reflecting the sun in blinding flashes. But within, it is chaos held together by fear. Each fish moves closer to the next, tightening the formation, compressing into a dense, rotating core. Safety in numbers. But only for a moment, because this kind of movement does not go unnoticed. From the edges of the formation, shadows begin to appear. Fast, coordinated, intelligent. A group of dolphins cuts through the water, their sleek bodies slicing effortlessly toward the mass. They do not rush blindly. They organize, they surround, they control. With sharp bursts of sound, clicks and pulses, they communicate, mapping the bait ball, tightening its shape, driving it into an ever smaller space. The fish react instantly, compressing even further, their formation becoming almost impenetrable. But the dolphins are not alone. A darker presence emerges beneath the frenzy. Shark, slow at first, measured, then accelerating. It moves upward into the chaos, guided by vibrations, by the unmistakable signal of panic spreading through the water. Unlike the dolphins, it does not coordinate, it does not strategize. It commits. With a sudden charge, it bursts into the bait ball, jaws open, tearing through the densely packed fish. The formation breaks for a fraction of a second, then collapses back on itself, the fish desperately trying to rebuild their defense. Above, the sky responds. Seabirds spiral tighter and tighter, their calls sharp, urgent. They have seen this before. They know what it means. One by one, they fold their wings and dive, slicing through the air, then the water, striking with pinpoint precision. Now, all worlds collide. The bait ball contracts even more, compressed from every direction. Dolphins surge in from the sides, stunning fish with quick, controlled blows. Sharks rise from below, tearing through the mass with brute force. Birds fall from above, catching fleeing fish before they can escape the surface. There is no longer order, only chaos. The water churns violently, flashes of silver bursting in every direction as the bait ball begins to fragment. The fish break apart in desperation, scattering into the open ocean, but that only makes them easier targets. The bait ball shrinks, diminishes, disappears. What was once a living fortress becomes scattered remains, the survivors fleeing into the endless blue, their formation broken beyond repair. And as quickly as it began, it ends. The dolphins slow, their movements relaxing as they regroup. The shark descends once more, its presence fading into the depths. The birds rise, circling briefly before dispersing across the open sky. The ocean calms, the surface smooths, silence returns, but beneath that calm, the truth remains. These events are not rare, they are inevitable. Moments in which the balance of the ocean condenses into a single explosive interaction, where species collide, cooperate, compete, and survive in ways that blur the lines between predator and opportunist. Because in the Pacific, no opportunity lasts forever, and when it appears, everything comes to feed. As the sun sinks beyond the horizon, the reef begins to change. Colors fade first. The bright blues, yellows and reds that once defined this underwater world dissolve into muted shadows. The light softens and then disappears completely, replaced by a dim and shifting glow from the surface above. What was once vibrant and visible becomes something quieter, more uncertain. But the reef does not sleep. It transforms. From within the coral itself, something begins to stir. Small and delicate tentacles emerge from thousands of tiny openings, extending into the water like a field of living threads. During the day, the coral appears motionless, almost lifeless. But at night, it awakens. Each polyp extends into the current, capturing microscopic plankton drifting in the darkness. The reef, once a place of movement and color, becomes a vast organism that feeds, silent, patient, alive, in ways that are easy to overlook. The entire structure breathes. It feeds. It exists in a rhythm hidden from the light. And with this transformation, new hunters emerge. From the shadows among the rocks, something moves. An arm extends slowly, almost imperceptibly, followed by another. The texture changes, blending perfectly with the darkened reef. What seemed like stone begins to move with intent. An octopus. At night, it no longer hides. It is hunting. Its body glides along the reef floor, every movement deliberate, controlled. Without the distraction of daylight, the octopus becomes something far more active, exploring crevices, probing holes, sensing the slightest vibrations left by prey. A small crab runs across the sand. It pauses for a moment, unaware. The octopus slows down. Its color shifts subtly, adapting to the darkness around it, its form dissolving once more into the reef. It approaches little by little, every movement calculated, every pause measured with precision. The distance closes, and then a sudden strike. Arms extend in a fluid burst, wrapping around the crab, pulling it inward before it can react. The sand stirs briefly, then settles. The octopus resumes its slow glide, already searching for the next opportunity. Elsewhere, the reef is full of invisible movement. Nocturnal predators make their way through the darkness. Fish that remained hidden during the day now venture out, their senses sharpened for the low light. Eyes glow faintly as they scan the water, detecting the slightest flicker of movement. The balance has shifted. Roles have reversed. Creatures that thrive during the day retreat into hiding, seeking refuge within coral structures, and those that waited now take control. The reef becomes quieter, but more dangerous. A place where every shadow holds potential, where every movement must be measured against the risk of being seen or sensed. Above, the surface reflects the faint glow of the moon, its light barely reaching the depths below. It is enough to reveal outlines, but not to offer certainty. And in that uncertainty, the night thrives. The coral continues feeding, predators continue hunting, and the entire ecosystem shifts to a different rhythm. One that exists parallel to the daytime world, but operates under completely different rules. Because in the Pacific, the night does not bring rest, it reveals another world. A world where silence replaces color, where patience replaces movement, and where the hunters of the dark move with a precision that only darkness can conceal. Far from the heat of the tropics, where coral reefs glow with life and the open ocean pulses with movement, the Pacific reaches its limits. Here, the water changes. The temperature drops sharply, turning what was once a fluid expanse into something far more hostile. The surface hardens in places, forming vast sheets of ice that stretch toward the horizon. The wind cuts across the ocean with relentless force, carrying with it a cold that seeps into everything. This is the polar Pacific, a boundary of survival. The light itself feels different here, low, pale, often hidden behind layers of cloud and storm. For long periods, darkness can dominate, and when the sun returns, it remains briefly, casting a cold glow over a world that offers little comfort. And even here, life persists. At the boundary between ice and water, movement breaks the stillness. A group of penguins gathers at the edge of an ice platform. On land, they seem clumsy, their bodies swaying as they move. But at the water's edge, everything changes. One jumps, then another. They plunge into the icy ocean, instantly transforming into something streamlined, agile, made for a world beneath the surface. Their wings become flippers, propelling them through the water with surprising speed. Here, they are not vulnerable, they are hunters. Small fish scatter as the penguins dart through the cold currents, twisting and turning with precision. Every movement is efficient, every second in the water balanced against the brutal cold that surrounds them. Because even for them, time is limited. Nearby, a darker shape glides just beneath the surface. A seal, larger, stronger, adapted to withstand the cold with thick layers of insulating fat. It moves with silent confidence, navigating between ice blocks and open water, equally at ease in both. But survival here is not just about hunting, it is about enduring. The cold is constant, the environment relentless. Food is not always guaranteed, and the distance between safety and danger can be measured in seconds. A penguin surfaces, breaking through the water, climbing back onto the ice. It pauses, observing its surroundings. Because the danger is not only below. From beneath the ice, unseen predators patrol, waiting for a moment of vulnerability. From above, the hostile weather itself threatens survival, testing each creature's ability to withstand its extremes. The seal dives again, disappearing into the dark water, while the penguins regroup, their movements tense, alert. Every action here is calculated, every journey between the ice and the ocean, a risk. And yet, life continues. Because in this frozen edge of the Pacific, adaptation is everything. Bodies are built to conserve heat. Behaviors are shaped by scarcity. Time becomes critical. Feeding, resting, moving, all dictated by a narrow window of opportunity in a world that offers very little margin for error. This is not a place of abundance. It is a place of resilience, where survival is earned through endurance, through precision, through the ability to exist, where conditions push life to its limits. At the poles, the Pacific reveals another face, cold, hostile, relentless, and yet undeniably alive. Because even here, at the edge of what is possible, life finds a way to endure. In the Pacific, nothing truly begins, and nothing truly ends. It simply continues. Beneath the surface, carried by currents that never rest, life moves in cycles, repeating, renewing, transforming over time. Every creature, no matter how small or large, is part of a rhythm that cannot be broken, only followed. In the open water, a gathering begins. Thousands of fish converge, drawn by an instinct older than memory. Their movements synchronize, tightening into dense formations as they rise toward the surface. The water shimmers with anticipation, a silent signal that something extraordinary is about to happen. Spawning. In a sudden and synchronized release, clouds of eggs and sperm burst into the water, expanding like a living mist. There is no care, no protection, only numbers. Survival here is not about protecting the next generation. It is about overwhelming chance itself. Millions are released, but only a fraction will endure. The rest will become part of the ocean again. Fertilized eggs float, suspended in the vastness, carried by currents that will decide their fate. There is no control, no direction, only movement, and the hope that some will find the conditions necessary to survive. Because in the Pacific, beginnings are fragile. Far away, along a quiet stretch of coast, another cycle reaches its most vulnerable moment. The sand moves. A small head emerges, followed by flippers struggling against the weight of the earth above. Then another, and another. Newly hatched sea turtle hatchlings. They hesitate only for a second before moving, driven by instinct. The ocean lies just ahead, its waves rolling gently under the fading light. But between them and survival, there is danger. Every movement is a risk. Birds circle above. Shadows move across the sand. The hatchlings hurry toward the water, their tiny bodies moving with urgency, guided by a force they do not understand but cannot ignore. Most will not make it, but those that do disappear into the Pacific, beginning a journey that will last years, even decades. They will drift, grow, and travel across entire oceans before returning, somehow, to the very place where they were born. A perfect cycle, unbroken. Back beneath the surface, life continues in its smallest forms. Larvae drift in the water, nearly invisible, fragile, and completely at the mercy of the currents. These are the earliest stages of countless species, suspended between existence and disappearance. They do not swim with purpose, they are carried. Some will find nutrient-rich waters growing, transforming into forms capable of survival. Others will drift into emptiness, where food is scarce and danger is constant. Here, fate is not determined by strength or speed, but by chance, and yet the cycle persists, because it does not depend on individuals. It depends on continuity. Birth leads to growth. Growth leads to survival. Survival leads, inevitably, to death. And from that death, nutrients return to the ocean, once again feeding the smallest organisms. Plankton, the foundation of everything. The cycle begins again. Endless, relentless. The Pacific does not pause to mourn. It does not slow to celebrate. It moves forward, carrying life through its stages with a silent inevitability. Because here, existence is not defined by a single moment, but by repetition, by renewal, by the constant turning of a cycle that never stops. In this vast living ocean, every ending is simply the beginning of something else. Nothing in the Pacific exists in isolation. Every shifting current, every moving creature, every life that begins or ends sends ripples through a system so vast, so intricate, that even the smallest change can resonate across entire oceans. It is not chaos, it is balance. Delicate, constant, relentless. At the very base, life begins with the smallest forms, plankton drifting in sunlit waters, capturing energy, multiplying in numbers beyond comprehension. They are almost invisible, and yet they sustain everything above them. Small fish gather to feed. Larger fish follow them. Predators emerge behind them. A chain, unbroken. A school of fish contracts suddenly, reacting to a passing threat. In that single movement, energy shifts. Prey becomes scarce in one area, abundant in another. A predator must adjust, redirect, adapt. Nothing is fixed. Everything responds. A shark glides through open water, its presence altering behavior without a single attack. Fish scatter, reorganize, relocate. Entire patterns of movement change simply because it exists. This is influence without contact, balance without stillness. Because predators do more than hunt, they shape. They control populations, prevent overgrowth, maintain the structure of the ecosystem itself. Without them, the system begins to fail. Prey multiplies unchecked, resources are consumed too quickly, and the delicate balance begins to collapse. This is the Pacific, a system built on connection, a network so complex that no part can exist independently. Remove one thread, and tension shifts across the entire structure. Alter one element, and consequences spread outward, often invisible, until they become inevitable. Even the environment itself plays its role. Temperature changes redirect currents. Currents redistribute life. Storms reshape entire regions. Nothing remains constant, and yet balance is maintained. Not because it is stable, but because it is dynamic, always adjusting, always responding, always finding a way to continue. A reef thrives when its inhabitants remain in balance, predators keeping herbivores in check, herbivores preventing algae from overwhelming the coral. Remove one piece, and the entire structure begins to change, slowly at first, then suddenly. The same happens in the open ocean, in the deep sea, at the polar limits. Different environments, same principle. Everything is connected. From the smallest drifting organism to the largest predator that roams the depths, each plays a role in maintaining the fragile harmony of the Pacific. Because here, survival is not only individual, it is collective, and the ocean does not just sustain life, it regulates it, it balances it, it maintains it, until something changes. Because in a system so vast, even the smallest disturbance can become something much greater. For thousands of years, the Pacific has existed on its own terms. It has shaped climates, guided migrations, sustained life on a scale almost impossible to comprehend. Its systems are vast, resilient, constantly adapting to change. Storms come and go. Currents shift. Species emerge and disappear. But in recent history, a new force has entered the balance. One that does not follow the same rhythms. One that changes the rules faster than the ocean can respond. Humans. Across the Pacific, fishing has always been part of life. A connection between people and the sea. But as technology advanced, that connection became something far more powerful. Industrial fleets now reach even the most remote regions, extracting fish in quantities that far exceed natural recovery rates. Entire populations decline, not suddenly, but steadily. Predators that once shaped ecosystems begin to disappear, and with them, the balance they maintained begins to shift. Smaller species multiply, food chains adjust in unpredictable ways. The system continues, but not as before. At the same time, something else drifts through the ocean. It is not alive, but it is everywhere. Plastic, carried by currents, fragmented by waves, it spreads across vast distances, accumulating in regions where the water itself seems to gather debris. It does not dissolve, it does not disappear. It remains. Small fragments are mistaken for food, entering the very base of the food chain. Larger pieces entangle, restrict movement, alter behavior. The impact is often subtle at first, invisible, imperceptible, but it accumulates over time, layer upon layer, affecting creatures at every level of the ecosystem. And then there is the change that cannot be seen directly. Temperature. As global climates change, the Pacific absorbs much of that change. Waters warm, currents alter their paths. Coral reefs, once vibrant and full of life, begin to lose their color, their structure, their ability to support the communities built around them. In some regions, life adapts. In others, it struggles. Migration patterns shift, feeding grounds move, species are forced into new territories, creating interactions that did not exist before. Balance is not completely lost, but it becomes more fragile, more uncertain, and yet the Pacific endures. It continues moving, adapting, responding in ways that reflect its immense complexity. Life persists, even under pressure, even in changing conditions. But now there is a difference. The pace of change. What once unfolded over centuries now occurs within decades. And the ocean, vast as it is, does not always have time to adjust. This is not a story of collapse. It is a moment of decision, because the same presence that alters also has the capacity to protect. Efforts to manage fishing, reduce waste, and understand ocean systems are growing. Small changes, when applied consistently, can spread outward, just like damage. The balance of the Pacific has never been fixed. It has always depended on interaction, on adaptation, on the relationship between all things within it. Now, that relationship includes us. The Pacific does not need us to survive, but its future may depend on whether we choose to protect it. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments below.